What up, data nerds? I'm Luke, and welcome to my channel where I make data visualization easy. In this video today, we're going to be going over loops, specifically the two types of loops, for and while loops. We'll be spending the majority of our discussion on for loops because I feel these are more dynamic and used more often. From there, we're going to get into flow control statements, so certain statements we can use within loops to control loops. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up all together and do a practice problem using the Office script dataset. And we're going to be analyzing to see if we can find certain statements within the script itself and see how often they appear. So with that, let's jump right in. So here we are in my Mac on VS Code with a Jupyter notebook launched. And the first loop we're going to be discussing is for loops. With the for loops, we have this basic structure, and it's going to be where we have for, the iter, and that's just the variable we're going to use to iterate through some sort of iterable, followed by a colon. And then the next line needs to be indented for it to carry out whatever the for statement is. And as long as we have something to iterate over, the code underneath it will execute. So here is a simple for statement, and it's designed and set up just like we previously discussed. You have the variable that we're going to be using to iterate through some iterable. In this case, the iterable that we're going to be using is a list of numbers, so 0, 1, 2, 3. And as it goes through each one of those numbers will print to the screen. So if I press Shift Enter, I can see, hey, 0, 1, 2, and 3. One thing that confused me was this this variable name right here. So this can be anything, right? I can change this to, if I wanted to, I can change this to X. And what's going to happen is, as long as I'm using it still within the statement right here, it's still going to execute the same code. Additionally, we don't necessarily have to put the full iterable inside of here. You can assign it to a variable, and we can make a simple looking statement like this, and we're still going to get the same results. For loops, it's important that you understand the built-in Python function range, as you'll see this whenever you're reading other people's code, and you'll even use it in your own code. But if I go ahead and insert range 4 and do Shift Enter, okay, it will output, hey, it's this range 0 through 4, and this is actually an iterable. So if I change this into a list, press Shift Enter, I will see, hey, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So actually applying this inside of a for statement, I'm going to go ahead and paste this right here. And I've made this a little bit more dynamic in the fact that, hey, we have this for number in range, and you can actually have up to 3 different parameters specified to range. So the start number, the stop number, and then the space that you want to do in between those numbers. So 2 in this case. So if I do Shift Enter for this, I would expect, 4, 6, and 8. When using loops, it's important to understand that Python can iterate over any items of any sequence. So what that means is it could be like a string, it could be a list, a tuple. In this case, we're going to do a dictionary. And so say we have this ages cast, I press Shift Enter, so it's evaluated in there. And then if I wanted to loop over this ages cast, I could just make a statement where we're going to cycle over the keys inside the ages cast. And for this, we're going to print the keys. So as this goes through, it will just cycle through and do the names itself, which are the keys. But say we want to get which we're going to take this a step further now, say we wanted to get these, the values for this. How will we do that? So to get it, we have 2 main approaches that we can take. We can either call into the key of the dictionary itself or iterate over the dictionary items. And we're going to explain this further. So let's do the first case first of using the actual keys itself. So if I had the ages of the cast and I wanted to look at, say, Dwight's age, I could put Dwight within the brackets here, and it's going to call out what is the value for this key. And we look up at this, right? Dwight is 48. So the key Dwight, the value 48. So we could do a similar approach whenever doing the for statement. We could do for key in ages cast, and then from there I want to print, the key, and then also the ages cast. I'm going to put the variable inside of the ages cast to actually put the different names as we cycle through this loop. So if I do Shift Enter, we can see that it actually goes through and not only prints the keys, but also prints the value for it. So the other approach using the dictionary.items is what you'll probably see more frequently. And just to understand what the .items is, so let's do the ages cast .items and see what comes up. Press Shift Enter. And what it is it's a dictionary items. It's a list of tuples. So you have your Dwight in 48, Jim in 34, and it has the key values within each individual tuples. Now this is great because now I can do a for statement, and I'll do this, right? I have 2 items within this list, right? So I put these 2 variables right here, and it's going to pull them out of this ages cast items itself. And then from there, we can print the key and the value. And I go ahead and press Shift Enter. And yeah, so then it prints the key value pairs from that dictionary. And so just don't get confused. You could put multiple variables, especially if it's something like a tuple that has multiple values within a list, say. The last built-in function that we're going to be covering is enumerate, and you'll see this come up from time to time. But let's say we had, it could be a tuple, a list, or a dictionary, but in this case we're using a tuple. Let's say we had a list of certain items and they appeared in a certain order and we wanted that index to appear next to it. So in this case, hey, these characters are ordered by the number of episodes they appeared in, with Pam being in the most episodes and Meredith being in the least. So when I print this, I want it to print basically 1 for Pam and then 4 for Meredith. And using the current approach, it's not printing this. So let's use enumerate to get this. So if I type in enumerate and do female cast and Shift Enter, we can see it's a enumerate object. And to investigate it further, I can convert this into a list to see what's going on here. And we can see, oh, okay, hey, 0 Pam, 1 Angela, 2 Kelly, and 3 Meredith. Nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually insert this into a for statement of how we want it to appear. Okay, so here we are with the for statement. And what we do is we want it to have the title of highest number of the office appearances. Then from there, cycle through the index and the value in this enumerate. Remember previously we did the dictionary where it did the key and the value. In this case, we're gonna have the index and the value come out of this using the enumerate built-in function. And then from this, we're gonna wanna print this. I did a index +1 because I don't want it to say 0 Pam. I want to say 1 period Pam, and so on. And so I do Shift Enter, and yeah, we can see, hey, highest number of office appearances, 1 Pam, 2 Angela, and so on. So moving on to the second type of loop, a while loop. Here is the basic structure, and it's going to be while, and then you're going to have a condition, and this condition needs to evaluate, similar to an if statement, needs to evaluate to either true or false. And so while the condition is true, the condition below it, or the code below it that is indented, will continue to execute. So let's see an example of this. So here's a basic example. So while true, print Dwight was here. And what's going to happen is unfortunately, we're going to go into a never-ending loop because it's going to continue to be while true and continue to print this. And so if you ever find yourself in this, especially you can see right here with this star right here, just go ahead and stop the notebook itself. And once it's stopped, it will you won't be in this infinite loop anymore. So let's just modify this code further to fix that. So we've modified this code to take that permanent true condition out and set it to a variable. And from there, we expect this loop to print Dwight was here once, and then from there, set the condition to false. So we'll exit the loop after this. So pressing Shift Enter, yep, it just printed once. Moving into a more complex condition, if you will. If you're coming from previous programming languages, such as VBA for Microsoft, you may see this as very familiar, and we use while loops to cycle through to a certain number. So in this case, we set x equal to 0, and while x is less than 3, we want to print the certain variable, and every single time we go through this while loop, we're going to increment it by 1. So if we do Shift Enter, yeah, we expect it to iterate through each time until we get to 3, and then it exits the while loop. I would encourage you though, if you're ever writing code similar to this, this statement right here, if you're ever writing code similar to this, I would encourage you to use for loops instead, because as we can get the same job done pressing Shift Enter with less code and with less likely to have mistakes within it. Now let's move on to loop control statements. And as I was talking about the intro, these are statements and keywords that you can use within your code to control the flow of your loops. So let's look at the first example. The first example is going to be using break. Let's say we have this tuple of female cast members, and we're gonna iterate through it. So 4 females in female cast. However, if we get to Kelly within this tuple, we do not want to continue on with listing or carrying out the code. So in that case, we would use a break statement. And whenever I press Shift Enter, we can see that it does exactly that. So it goes through Pam, it goes through Angela. As soon as the Kelly condition is met, it breaks from the for loop and exits, and therefore does not execute this print female for Kelly or for Meredith. Thinking about our previous example where we got stuck in that infinite loop, breaks or statements are also good at making sure that you don't get within this infinite loop. So if you wanted to, when you're writing your code initially and testing it out, you may want to insert break statements just in case, to make sure that you don't get into an endless loop. And in this case, it demonstrates hey, it prints the Dwight was here once, and then it breaks and exits the loop. So now moving on to continue statements. So break was used to exit the loop. Continue is just used to skip over a certain lines of codes that follow. So the very similar example, we're still iterating through this tuple list of female characters. When we get to this Kelly name, we just want to skip Kelly. We don't want to print it to the screen, and we want to basically skip the rest of the statements within this for loop and start with the next item, so Meredith. So whenever I go to execute this, Shift Enter, I would expect to see, yeah, Pam, Angela, and then it gets to Kelly, does the continue, and it will go back into the top of the for loop, skipping the print female for Kelly, and then executing Meredith. And then the final flow control statement to talk about is pass. Not used as frequently, but say that you are, you want to have this while statement, and you want to have a while statement for a certain condition, but you don't really know what you're going to be using within the code within it. If I have to put something underneath it in order for it to not throw this error. So pass is a great way to do that. And what it's going to do is just pass. But in this case, once again, we're in this infinite loop, so we need to get out of this. So let's move on to the application of loops within a data analytical problem. So we have a data set for scripts for the office, and it's located right here within our repository itself. And what we want to analyze is we want to see how many times in the script they have the saying, "That's what she said." Additionally, we want to not only find when they say that, but we want to return the previous and the current lines to see what's so funny about it. And just one little note on this, you can use external libraries such as pandas, but this series is focused on just using the Python standard library. So that's where we're going to focus on this. But feel free after this to use pandas. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry too much about that. For the data set itself, just looking at the CSV imported into Excel, it has basically for all the different seasons and episodes, it has every single line, and it has the speaker of who it came from. So we're going to be searching through this column E, if you will, to find that condition. So as always, let's go over what the approach is going to be. So the first approach, for the first portion, we need to basically ingest all the data from the CSV. Once we have that data inside of the file, we need to then go and extract only the script lines. And what we want to do is just put this into a list. Now that we have this list, we want to go through the list and check for the statement of "that's what she said." And then finally, once we check for that match statement of "that's what she said," we want to return the previous line and also that line itself. Okay, so let's jump right in. So for the first portion, you're probably wondering, hey, how do I import a CSV? And I just want to go through the basic approach that I would take anytime I'm encountering this type of problem, and that's just Google it. And typically, whenever you Google anything, I would try to go to the docs.python.org, and they also have other good references as well, but I like using docs.python.org. And then from here, we can see the module itself we can use within Python to import a CSV, and we'll be using that. So for this, we're going to first need to import the module CSV. This is part of Python's standard library, so we don't need to do any pip install. From there, we want to open the CSV. So I'm just going to paste this right here, but we're going to use the Python built-in function open, and we're going to specify it's within the directory. So it's within this the office data. So I have the office data / scripts the office.csv. And then one thing to note, right, this is a string. So you need to encompass it within single or double quotes and then have open. Anytime you open a file, you should also, for good practice, close the file. So you would use the method close. And then if I wanted to take it further and print CSV file to see what's going on here, I could do Shift Enter. And so it's an input output wrapper. We can't really do anything with this. So we need to make it into basically a, if you will, a reader type file. So we'll do CSV reader, and this is when we're going to use the CSV module. So we'll use CSV.reader, and then from there we'll use CSV file itself. And then we could also do similar. We can print CSV reader. Okay, so now we have a reader object, and this is a reader object is, just for your information, this is now something we can iterate through, and that now we're going to use a loop to actually iterate through the contents of this iterable. So I'm going to modify this print statement further. I'm going to do a for loop. And so I've added this code. So we're basically going to go through each row in CSV Reader. We're going to print that row, and then we could print all of the different rows, but remember we used break before. I just want to see the first row and then break from this loop and see what's printed out. So we do a Shift Enter and we see, hey, okay, this is the first line of the Excel file. And so, or the CSV file. So we're on the right track. So remember our approach to this. We want to read the data from the CSV, which we have. Now we want to extract. We want to extract script data into a list. And so that's the next thing. So we want the script data. Remember that the script data is in this, this line text. And if we count over, we can see that it is so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items over. And remember, Python uses 0 as an index, as we saw previously. So I want to print the number 4. And let's see what happens whenever we do this. We do Shift Enter. I would expect to get, line text. Okay, so now we know we're going to be getting the fourth item of every single row as we go through this. Now what we can do is we can have this added to a list. So what we'll do is we'll add in a list, and we'll just set this equal to a blank list. So there's nothing inside of this list, it's just blank. And then from here, we can say, hey, we will do list dot, remember we can do append to append something to a list, and we'll do that row and then that fourth item. And then I can get rid of these items that are attached. So we're just going through and basically it's gonna get all of the different scripts into one single list. And we do Shift Enter. Okay, we can't really see anything. The list is gonna be pretty big, but we'll just go ahead and print it. So list, and so we can see it's just a giant list of all the different scripts here. So now we have this list, like I said, of the scripts itself. Now we want to iterate through it to perform the next step. We want to check for the match statement, which is that's what she said. So first, let's define the condition. So the condition we want to meet is a variable, and we'll just assign it. Okay, so we've assigned that to a variable. And what we want to do is we want to loop through this list and check for each item in that list to see if it has this statement right here, this condition. So I'll do a for loop first. For each item, I want to see if that it contains or it has this certain phrase within it. And remember, we can also use that in operator to check for that. So if condition is in item, let's do print the item. So yeah, this is just a recap, right? This is going through each item in the list, and then from there it's doing a conditional statement that says, hey, if that's what she said is inside of that portion of the list, I want you to print it. So let's look at that. All right, and so now we're getting a good bit of results, and okay, we can see all the different ones, and it looks like everything's matching on that's what she said. But then going back up here, remember, we want to check for the match statement, which we've done. Now we wanted to return the previous line and the current line. So right now we're returning the current line, but we want to return the previous line. So what I will do is we will assign something. So we'll do this, and we'll assign a variable outside of this if, and we'll have previous item equal to item. And then from here, we'll be able to, as this loops through, this will have previous item for the previous one, if you will. So I can do previous item. Okay, so I've updated this further. And just as a quick recap, we're going to be printing the previous item. So what was the item before the item, and then form a new line. That's what this is right here. It's just signifying a new line. Then the item itself, and then two new lines. So that way we have space in between all of this, and it's more in a readable manner. So if I do Shift Enter, okay, we can actually see and go through. Yeah, so we have some, I'm not going to say this out loud because it's a little bit inappropriate, but we have all of the different that's what she said statements, and have the previous line on what triggered that's what she said statement. Bam! So there you have it. We covered loops today, focusing on for and while loops, and then also looking at control flow statements. Just to reiterate, I feel the for loops are more important when they come to data analysis, and I use them more often than while loops. In the next video, we're going to be talking about list comprehension, which can also be used in dictionary and tuple comprehension. But anyway, we're going to talk about this Python type of way to make lists in the easiest manner possible that builds on the for loops that we learned from this video. So as always, if you found this video useful, smash that like button, comment down below on if you have any questions relating to loops. And if you're finding this tutorial series interesting, please consider subscribing. And with that, we'll see you in the next episode.